Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name again is Jeffrey Davis. I am the host of Radio Entrepreneurs, also CEO, founder of Mage LLC, management consulting firm to leadership and entrepreneurs since 1985. And I'm really excited that, we have a partnership with FEI, Financial Executives International, which means my co-host today is the one and the only Evan Macedo, VP of Finance and Operations at Sapers and Wallack. Welcome back, Evan.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It is a pleasure to be here representing our great company as well as FEI.
Great. And, someone you and I are both familiar with, you a lot more than I am. Our guest today is going to be Holly Knight, Director of Retirement and Outcomes at Sapers and Wallack. And today we're going to be talking about a topic I deal with a lot in it from a different perspective, financial wellness for women investing, because this is, and it should be always, I think, National Women's History Month. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I don't know which topic you wanted to address first. This is the month of Women's History Month, or this whole wellness for women's investing. I'll leave it up to you.
Well, we can start in either spot. Sapers and Wallack has really spent a lot of time and energy, supporting different initiatives. And obviously women and investing is a big one for us. Sapers and Wallack, it's a comprehensive financial firm for those who don't know, and we're based in Newton, Mass. And we service individuals, business owners, and executives, and we've been doing it since 1932. So that's almost 90 years. And that's through change management, market volatility, unforeseen challenges, and our collective ability to follow that golden rule. I think Stephen Covey is the one who kind of coined it, but it's seek first to understand, then to be understood. And that's kind of the crux of what we do at Sapers and Wallack. So, it's a fantastic firm to work for. And on top of that, this fantastic firm is led by a female CEO. So in an industry that is dominated by men, I feel really, really fortunate and humbled to be able to work for a firm that not only is the leadership by a woman, but a woman in this industry, and has been able to, kind of champion these causes for the past 90 years. So it's really, really exciting. So my role at Sapers and Wallack, for those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Retirement Outcomes. I think my title is kind of self-explanatory, in the context of the conversation today, but I think of myself more as a financial therapist, I would say, or a behavioral finance educator. My job is to present learning opportunities that align with an individual's goals, their needs, their risk tolerance, timeframes, and things like that. And then understanding the foundation of those decisions and why they make the decisions that they make. And when it comes to women, especially, this is really critical to the success in achieving financial goals.
And Holly, I want to jump in for a second. I know you are on these video Zoom calls all day, almost every day, interviewing men and women from all the different companies that we do work with to give them financial advice. And one question that I wanted to ask you is, what is the biggest difference in your discussions when you're talking about financial wellness between women and men?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, there are several factors that are at play when we discuss the differences and how and why we should communicate financial information a little differently. But women are typically, now I'm going to do a lot of broad stroking here because not everybody falls really neatly into these little designed boxes. But typically speaking, women are more emotional when it comes to decision making. And our money story or our money why that we develop by the age of 7 absolutely impacts how we make future financial decisions. So understanding the behavioral finance and how it applies to a woman's decision making is critically important to understand as an advisor helping to get that person to reaching their goals. Secondly, a difference between men and women. Women tend to be more life goal focused as opposed to men who are typically more returns focused, right? They like the charts and the graphs. And yet our industry still explains financial topics with charts and graphs and industry lingo that's confusing and intimidating for a lot of women. And yet women make up 51% of the population. So it's, changing how we have these conversations with women is really critically important in order for them to gain the understanding and knowledge that they need to make the right decisions for themselves. And then the last point I wanted to make is that we just approach risk differently. Women are less likely to take on more risk as men. And with less risk, that means they need to save more or save longer to achieve those goals. So, that's something that we need to be aware of as well.
Well, Holly, I have a couple of questions, and I do
Sure.
agree with most of your insights. One, I have found, again, I'm a different gender than you, so when we're dealing with women, we probably get a different reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that women, and I've read about this as well, they're more willing to talk about money than men are. Men are much more secretive about money. Do you find that as well?
I do find that, but with a caveat. Typically speaking, when I sit down with women, I always get the same questions over and over again. But those questions are typically not what they're really asking. They don't really know what they're asking some of the time. And some of the time it's because they have fear, they have, they're ashamed, or they feel, not as intelligent or smart because they don't know this information. So it tends to be that you have to kind of break down that wall and build some trust before you can actually have those in-depth conversations. Once you have the trust, I agree with you. Women, they will open up and we will talk about money, and we help kind of empower each other and support each other in that way.
Well, you brought up my second point before we let Evan take over everything, and that was the whole fear factor. And, in dealing with a lot with entrepreneurs, I find a lot of female spouses are in the dark financially, and they're scared to ask, or the other side doesn't want them to ask because they want control. And so this lack of control is not healthy for them. And trying to get them to want to get more involved and be a full partner is more important. It's easier for me to convince men to do that when the women are the financial dominant one. And so that's my other point, that, this fear factor really does play into all of it. And eventually it does catch up with people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I said the statistic earlier, but we're looking at 51% of the population in the US is female, 38% of primary breadwinners are women. And then you look at 90%.
What was that second number? Did you say 58?
38% of primary household breadwinners are women. And then 90% of all women at some point in their lives will be solely responsible for their own or their family's finances, for the points that you mentioned earlier. We're seeing a huge generational transfer of wealth happening over the next decade or two. And women are kind of set to do a lot of that inheriting. And yet they aren't as well versed in the financial aspects of their life because their spouse did it. And there's a lot of variable reasons or various reasons for why that is. But yeah, it's definitely a concern. And the problem is, if you haven't been involved with it, even at the basic knowledge level, then when something happens, whether it's, you go through a spouse or a partner dying, or whether you go through a divorce, suddenly you are in a situation where you have to understand it and learn it, and you're doing it in a stressful situation. And that can cause a lot of, that just exasperates the fear that we're already feeling about it. So it's really important to kind of tackle some of these topics and questions and concerns before we get to that point of really needing the help.
Wow. Evan, I know we've dominated the time, and I apologize. I'm wondering if you have a couple of questions before we finish the segment.
Absolutely, Jeff. Speaking about tackling topics, one question I wanted to ask you was, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges for women that women will be facing financially over this next decade?
Well, I just gave you some statistics, but the biggest one is that 90% of women are going to be in control of the majority of the wealth in this country over the next couple of decades. And yet, I always ask this question. I find it's fascinating to me. I'm a behavioral scientist, and I love to understand and I'd say that with no judgment. This is about really understanding why people make the decisions that they make. And I always ask this in education sessions. I'll say, okay, how many of you in the room, are contributing to your retirement plan, whether it's your 403B or your 401k? And I get the majority of hands that come up in the air. And then the next question is, I ask, how many of you see yourselves as investors? The women who have raised their hand to say that they, are contributing to to their retirement and out of every paycheck are also the ones that put their hand down when asked if they're investors. So understanding that, you are an investor. Just because you're putting into a target date fund and maybe you're not actively involved doesn't mean that you're not investing. Investing comes in a lot of shapes and sizes. And I think that's really important for women to understand. You don't have to be a day trader to be an investor. And that is kind of the mentality that a lot of women, seem to have. A decade ago, women were outliving spouses by 7 years, I think, and that number's gone up a little since then. And at the same time, we were still earning considerably less than men. Back then, 10 years ago, it was 65 cents to every dollar. Today, it's more about 80 to 81 cents. So there's still a gap, and we still have work to do as far as the pay gap is concerned. But so that is an issue that women are thinking about, and they've taken time out to raise families or take care of elderly parents or different things like that. If you couple that with the divorce rate and the fact that women are still the ones taking the breaks and they're still the ones caring for aging children, and that 90% of them are going to be in control of the wealth, to me, it seems like a critical time that and a critical need to really make sure that women understand what they're doing, understand what those investment strategies look like, and kind of lining up those goals with those strategies.
Well, it's clearly a time of great social change. There's a lot of movements pulling one way, pulling back another way.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like to be an optimist and like to think that gap that's down to 17% eventually will be wiped away very quickly, because we're all people and we need to, see things on a more equal playing field. But not everybody wants it that way. But I'm totally in support of what you're saying. And the strong, we said this before the segment, I talked about it, the stronger the woman, I think the better we all are because of that. And I really believe that. I know Evan does as well. Both Evan and I pursue that personally and professionally. But Holly, if someone wants to get hold of you and learn more about these topics, how would they find you?
Well, probably the easiest way to find us is just to go to our website, which is sapers-wallack.com. You can find out more information about all of the different, the different ways that we service clients. And you can also find our contact information. My email address is H as in Holly, Knight, Knight, at sapers-wallack.com. So you can email me directly as well. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you or set up a time for consultation if you'd like.
I know you're always very helpful. Evan, my partner from FEI, Financial Executives International. How do people find you?
Easiest way to do it, I'm also, at Sapers and Wallack. So you can just go to our website, www.sapersandwallack.com. I also want to give a big shout out to FEI, one of Boston's premier financial senior level to mid-level financial networking groups. And if you want to check out FEI, there's all kinds of great events going on and resources, as well as a wonderful membership base. And you can find us at feiboston.org.
Oh, great, Evan. Thanks a lot. And I look forward to speaking to you again. Holly, always great having you on the show. You have to come more often. Great topics. Remind everybody, my name is Jeffrey Davis. This is Radio Entrepreneurs.